concerned about people's progress. Those are the things that make them feel they have arrived. They have arrived. In fact, now they don't even joke with you anymore. There's somebody you pray with before, you crack jokes, you shake yourself. When you lift your hand to shake, your hands will hang on the air. He won't lift his own. When you lift your hand, he will say, you know, it's important for us to understand seasons. Because if you don't understand seasons, you will not move forward. But it's parables. May God give us understanding. If God is helping somebody, honor him. It is foolishness not to honor the person God is lifting. But if honor has become something we so weaponize that we teach it until we use it as a witchcraft tool, then something is wrong with our soul. And when God sees that, God will insist that we never rise again. Because pride is what will rob this generation of the graces that we require to become a wonder to our generation. And number 5, I said you must have love for the souls, love for the sheep, compassion for the sheep. If you don't love the people, you have no ministry. If you don't love the people, because God's agenda is with men. And so you cannot claim you are part of God's agenda when you don't have affection, love, and passion for the people. I read scriptures for you yesterday from Matthew 14:14, Matthew 9:37. The Bible said Jesus saw the multitude and he was moved with compassion. It was on the strength of compassion that he healed them. It was on the strength of compassion that he went from place to place to serve them. And Paul was speaking in 1 Thessalonians 2:8. He said, because we are affectionately desirous of you, we did not just teach you the gospel, we imparted you the substance of our soul. There was connection with the people of God. There was passion for the people of God. There was love for the people of God. But today, ministry is profession. No connectivity, no concern, no attention, no love, no compassion. So long as people are slaving for God's servant, it's okay. But if God's servant has to go out of his way to help people, then it doesn't work. I know God's servant was modest when he was sharing. Today, they will tell you, if you are doing youth ministry, the first thing they tell you is that there's no money there. May the Lord help you. May the Lord help you. Because nobody is interested where there's no money. It's always about self. It's always about me, I, and myself. No connection. You find God's servant smiling with somebody, check, he has money. Find God's servant laughing with somebody, check, there is something sacrificial that person is doing for him. You will hardly find people now who go out of their way to help people who will never pay back. But the way Jesus demonstrated it was to give his life for people who will never be able to pay back. He didn't do it for those who will pay back in cash or in kind. He did it for people who will never be able to pay back. Because for him, whatsoever you do, do as unto the Lord. There must be compassion and vital connectivity. These are moral standards in the realm of God. And these are the things God sees and makes God point at a man and say, this is my man. This one is genuine. I have seen his heart. He doesn't love money. He doesn't love himself. He doesn't love anything but me. And he's doing all he's doing as a sacrifice and an offering to glorify my name. When I saw the theme of the conference, my heart and my spirit leaped for joy. Because not everybody discerns the times that we are in. We are in the last days. And so Christianity cannot be business as usual. You cannot afford to call yourself a Christian and all you have are sets of rituals or just a religious routine. We have come to the time where it's a risk to call yourself a Christian, and so you have to have the capacity to demonstrate God. Because if you don't have that capacity and you just call yourself a Christian, you will not have it very easy in many quarters, in many corridors, and in many nations. And those of you who are in the north in particular, no one should know this better than you. And so you must make up your mind to resist and to rebel against religion. The time has come for the God you believe not just to be known by you, but for you to also have the capacity to demonstrate him. And so when God's servant sent me the theme, what manner of men? I was so blessed just by seeing the theme. And I know the time has come for true believers to emerge. Because when believers emerge, they emerge as a wonder to their world. We don't emerge as another movement with sets of belief, doctrines, and religious practices. We emerge to demonstrate God. The reason we have doctrine is because we want to create borderlines that guards the manifestations that we uphold. So we don't spiral into error. But doctrine is not just who we are. If we have a doctrine that cannot demonstrate God, then something is wrong with that doctrine. And so our belief system that is taught must have a capacity, or the capacity to accommodate the manifestation of God. Every belief system that does not have the capacity to manifest God has an error at its foundation. And so a generation has come that is not only interested in speaking language but demonstrating God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2 from verse 1, Paul said, I, Paul, when I came unto you, he said, I did not come with excellency of speech, declaring unto you the counsel of God. It is never about language. He said, I was amongst you, and I choose to know nothing save Christ and him crucified. He said, my preaching and my message was not with enticing words of human wisdom. He said it was the demonstration of spirit and power. And so there is nothing wrong with doctrines and teachings. But doctrines and teachings must also have the capacity to demonstrate spirit and power. If spirit and power is not demonstrated, what you are doing is dead. And it cannot raise men who can represent God. Because when Paul rounded up, he said that you will not stand in the wisdom of men. And so anything that cannot demonstrate spirit and power is the wisdom of men. And if you have that, you have just signed up for a defeated life, and you have just accepted the verdict of being a victim as you walk through life. But thanks be to God, we have not believed cunningly devised fables. Thanks be to God that the message and the life that we come to present is one that is able to demonstrate God and to showcase the power of God. This is what bets the generation of men that the world wonders at. What manner of men are these? Now, in order for accuracy and genuineness to be tied to what we do, I began my emphasis from the standpoint of morality. Because I know some of the mysteries of power, if you tap into them, there is a dimension you can enter that if your morality is affected, you can still manifest power. Because there are many people manifesting power today, but to a very large extent, God don't know them. To a very large extent, their character does not represent God. And so in order for us to understand priorities, I began by defining and explaining the necessity of moral values before demonstration of power, so that you are not just there manifesting something that another spirit can take over you and you are still manifesting. Because you can start with prophecy and end up in divination. You can start manifesting the spirit of God, but a point will come where you create a caveat for an immoral spirit, and God is no longer working, but another spirit takes over. You will still be calling names and phone numbers, but you are already in error. And so in order for you not to begin with God and to end up with the devil, we must define emphasis correctly. And this is why yesterday we said the first kind of men that the world wonders at are those who uphold the moral standards of God. And so we began from 2 Peter chapter 3, from verse 11 and verse 14 as our keywords, scriptures of emphasis. And Peter was speaking. He drew the attention to the fact that a time is coming where the elements of this world will melt. And they say, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved. Talking about every physical thing we know, from the diamonds to the iron, to all the natural resources, to all the physical possessions we have, like cars, like houses. It said a time is coming when all of these things shall melt. He now said, seeing then that all of these things shall dissolve, what manner of persons ought we to be in our lifestyle? Because if we don't realize that everything we have, a day will come when it will vanish, and it will no longer have the capacity to define our essence. We will live our life only based on the things we have. Paul said, a day cometh where these things, Peter rather, shall melt and shall be dissolved. He said, what manner of men ought we to be? And in verse 14, he said we should be blameless and without spot. And so I said the men that represent God must have a priority of attaining the standard and the status of blamelessness. That is what God looks at in his men. And even the world, as corrupt as it is, that is what he looks at in men. That's why the world is okay if somebody dresses naked. But if you say you are a man of God, you can't dress naked. The world has no challenge. If people are immoral, people can walk in and out of the hotel demonstrating all forms of immorality, no problem. But if you are a pastor, They will ask the question, what are you doing here? And how come you are holding on to a woman that is naked? I thought you say you are a man of God. So it's not only God that expects us to be blameless, even the world expects us to be blameless. And I told you yesterday, being a man of God is not having a title. A man of God is not a pastor. A man of God is not a prophet. A man of God is a man who comes from God. A man who represents God. A man whose essence is God. You are of God, little children, because you have overcome him. Whoever is born of God. So a man of God is one who is born of God, who lives for God, and who represents God. And Paul is saying, if we are such men, then blamelessness must become our target, because God has a moral value. Paul came to reiterate the same emphasis in 2 Timothy chapter 2 from verse 19. He said, the foundation of the Lord standeth sure. That means it will not bend for anybody. If you like be an apostle, if you like be a prophet, if you like be a bishop, this foundation will never bend. He said it is on the strength of God's standard that he identifies with men. He said, therefore the Lord knoweth them that are his. And he said, whoever names the name of the Lord must, not should, must depart from iniquity. Must depart from iniquity. In verse 21 of that scripture, it said, if a man purges himself, it said, then he is qualified, sanctified, and fit to be used of the master. So the men God uses that the world wonders at are those who are perfected the life of purity and holiness. If there's no morality in your life, there's nobody that will wonder at your existence. Your existence will be normal and natural like any other person. The reason the world wonders at you is because they see that everybody is fornicating. Why are you not fornicating? Everybody is lying. Why are you not lying? Everybody is compromising. Why are you not compromising? There is therefore something in you that makes you not like every other person. It's on the strength of your moral values and moral standard that the world will ask the question, what manner of man are you? We have been around you. Everybody drinks alcohol once in a while. How come you don't drink? We have been around you. Everybody has a girlfriend. How come you are not fornicating? What is it about you that you are able to live above the power of the age? Then they will begin to ask the question, what manner of man are you? And I gave us 5 standards yesterday. Number 1, I spoke about sexual purity. If we must be men of God, we must uphold purity, not just in public but in secret. It is easy to come to the platform and preach a good message, but God is not moved by the message you preach, because it's not growing based on your message. He's the one who even gave the message in the first place. God is moved by your capacity to sustain purity, that your garment is not stained. So when you stand, what the immortals are looking at is not your message, it is your garment. If there's a stain on your garment, you will have no right to participate in their realm. The title does not mean anything to those guys. When Isaiah ascended to the realm of God, he said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, and his strength filled the temple. He looked at the glory and the excellency of God, and suddenly nobody was carried away by his title. Nobody was carried away by every other physical qualification he came with. The first thing they checked was his purity. And without talking to him, he began to judge himself. He said, woe unto me, I'm a man of unclean lips. How can a national prophet suddenly begin to curse himself? Because he has come to the place where value systems are measured based on God's standard. And he discovered how much word of knowledge he gave before that time didn't count. He discovered his title did not count. Even though he was a national prophet, it meant nothing. They were checking his garment. And before they would interact with him, they had to purge him of his iniquity. And so if a man does not sustain purity, he cannot carry out the assignments of God and the agenda of God. No matter how intelligent and anointed he is, the first qualification is purity. 2 Corinthians 6:17 said, come out from among them. He said, touch not the unclean thing. He said, they that bear the vessels of God must be holy. And the Bible said, it's on that basis that I, the Lord, will accept you. And so you can come the way you are, but you cannot be used the way you are. If you want to walk with God, for the world to marvel at you, then purity must become a fight that you must win. Because the devil will fight your purity. The second thing I spoke about yesterday was love for God. And I told us the reason love for God is a qualification indicator of morality is because when your morality is affected, your affection for God begins to die. That's why you find people who can sit in front of the movie for 10 hours, but they cannot sit with their Bible for 30 minutes. Passion for God is beginning to die because they have begun to love the world. They have begun to love other things. And I showed you 5 other things that is possible to fall in love with. Number 1, I say you can love knowledge and not life. Because there are many people who want to have something to say so that they can appear relevant. That is the error of Adam in the garden. He didn't go for the tree of life. He went for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge without life is death. Everyone must pursue life, and life is in God. The knowledge of the holy, the knowledge of God is life. He said, this is life eternal, John 17:3, that you may know him, the only true God, and him that he has sent. And so knowledge that has no life in it is death. And so everyone who has affection for God pursues God, and not just any form of knowledge. I said the second thing you can fall in love with is money. And he said the love of money is the root of all evil, because you know that money has purchasing power. And so the more of money you have, the more you can build independence apart from God. Because when you have money, it looks as if you no longer need God. Every other thing that you should have trusted God for, it looks as if money will bring it. And so you begin to find relevance in things apart from God. So the moment you have that house, you feel you have arrived. But you can be in a house and the presence of God is not there. It's better to be in the wilderness with the presence of God than to live in a mansion without the presence of God. Love for money. I said the third thing you fall in love with is pleasure. The Bible said in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 4, it said these ones are lovers of pleasure. The fourth thing is lovers of self. So it's either you love pleasure or you love yourself. That's why you find a lot of people, they can spend 10 hours decorating their body. There's nothing wrong in looking good. I'm not looking too bad myself. Praise God. You can go to the gym and build your chest. You can carve your hair, dye it and look clean. Nothing wrong with that. But if you spend more time and more resources in developing your body and not your spirit, it means something is wrong with your affection. And that's what we call the spirit of the age. You know, when we are preaching, people don't know what we are saying sometimes. There are times when you are preaching, you are ministering to people. God will allow you to be very polite and diplomatic so that you can manage their immaturity. There are times when you are preaching, you are ministering to the territory. So you are talking to spirits, not men. You will become very aggressive. People who don't understand calling, they will assume you are talking to men. There are times when I'm talking about Jimmy, and I'm talking not just to the territory, I'm addressing the spirit of the age. Because the spirit of the age is the spirit of seduction. And so when you are addressing the spirit of the age, you will be talking like you are talking to the devil and to an enemy. If somebody hears you and he doesn't understand, is the apostolic man to at work. He may think you are not polite, he may think you are not diplomatic, but you see, because we know what we are doing, we don't care. I can come today and I'm talking about laziness and I'm addressing people. I'll be very polite and encourage them to be focused, to be disciplined, and show them what to do in order not to be lazy. But when I'm talking to the spirit of the age that wants to rob people of their destiny through lethargy, through weakness, through laziness, I will not be polite. Because at that point, it's not a preaching, it's a battle. I'm fighting a spirit. And so if you don't understand when I'm talking to people from when I'm talking to spirits, you may juxtapose things. And you will think I'm talking to people when I'm talking to spirits. There's a time when we are educating you, and there's a time when we are fighting spirits that are in authority or spirits that control this age. It is who we are talking to that determines our level of aggression. Are you following? And so there are those who are lovers of pleasure. There are those who are lovers of self. They spend a whole month taking care of themselves, their physical body, from eyelashes to fingernails to hairdo to size of their muscles, all of that. And they never have time to check what is happening with their spirit. You know why? Because they don't care about God. They care about human approval. When they step out, people should admire them. They snap pictures and put online. They are scanning their Facebook page every 1 hour to look at how many likes they have. And they are reading every comment to hear what people are saying about their eyelashes, about their color combination. All of that is good. To look good is good. But if it has become an obsession, it means you have become a slave. The same attention you pay to developing yourself, you should pay same to developing your spirit, and even much more, because God engages you in your spirit. But if your affection for God is dead, that will no longer matter. And so you become a carnal man. A carnal man is not a sinner. It's a man who is conscious of the physical aspect of his being, and he has no time or regard for God. And so the second standard that God insists on is love for God. God will not use you except as he's convinced that you are passionately in love with him. In John 21 verse 15, he came to Peter. He said, lovest thou me more than this? I want to make you the leader of the church, but we will check your love quotient. Lovest thou me more than this? Peter said, Lord, you know I do. He asked him that question 3 times before he made him one of the leading apostles of that generation. If you have no love for God, God will not work with you. And if God does not work with you, you are not a wonder. Nobody will ask the question, what manner of man are you? The third thing I spoke about yesterday was Integrity. I said there are many who know every right thing to say, but their life is a contradiction. The Bible said in Acts chapter 1 from verse 1, it said, of all that Jesus both began to do and to teach. You have no authority in what you are saying except as your life can command it. What you are not living, you cannot teach. Spiritual knowledge is not physical. It is not logical. It's not rational. It may appear rational and mental, but the ideal thing is that there is a life that flows through spiritual knowledge. And if that life is not at work in you, you cannot communicate it. And so you first of all do before you preach. There are many today, they go to Bible school to learn all the exegesis, to learn all the doctrine on all the vital aspect of Christian lifestyle. And when they master it, they come with very polished English and they are saying what they don't know. Because they know it's important to teach on prayer. Everybody is teaching on prayer. How many are praying? Because they know it's important to talk about purity. When you are preaching on sexual purity, people say you are a holy man. People say you are a genuine man of God. They start teaching every day about purity. But in their hearts, they are full of lust. And some of them are even cohabiting with women in different hotels and in different apartments. You can deceive men, not spirits. Because spirits see beyond what you say. They are seeing through the wall. They are seeing you even when the light goes off. Because their eyes are not physical lenses. They see through the dark room. They know what you are doing. They even know what you are thinking. And so integrity is a requirement for the kinds of people that the world will wonder at. I shared with you yesterday how many people rose up that they have passion to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. Lo and behold, they appeared in Italy. And they discovered that when sun is hot, you know, when it's hot in Gombe, you go and shower and stay in your house. When it's hot in some countries, they walk naked. They want to do, they call it sunbath. They are bathing with, when it's cold, sorry, they do sunbath. They are bathing with sun. So they wear pants and they are walking. And man of God said, Jesus, what is happening? Tomorrow, because integrity is not important to him, he starts making friends. And these friends, they are talking what they are not supposed to say. And before you know, he falls. Because even while he was here, he didn't think integrity was important. They send him money. Both ministry account and personal account is the same. Anyone that comes is spent. Because both him and the work of God are all the work of God. The worker of God is also the work of God. People send money for ministry. He said, we are buying chairs. When money comes, the next time, man of God is with iPhone. He said, my brother, he needs this iPhone in order to search the scriptures online. Because that is how he serves God. So this is part of God's work. No integrity. He's spending church money, spending his own money all on himself. And when he comes out, he said, the Lord is good. The Lord is good. And because he's preaching with a baritone voice and people are excited, he thinks God approves of him. A time will come when his disgrace will be the reason why he will run out of ministry. Integrity is a vital requirement for the men that will be wondered at. Number 4, I spoke about humility and brokenness. We are a proud generation. The moment God begins to do any little thing, we become Alpha and Omega. And so the reason you see people passionate for certain breakthroughs is so that they can sustain certain disposition. And so the moment church growth or church population becomes 2,000, the man of God starts working in a certain way. He looks at the people who were praying with him before and he wants to lay hands on them. When they are talking, he's quiet because he is a wise man. His friends that they were together before, when they talk, he say, I'm busy now, later. If you want to argue how many people come to your church, you are still 30, so you won't understand what you are doing. It takes a lot of stature. It takes a lot of stature. A friend who was his prayer partner before, we want to see him, he will say, okay, tell the protocol to give you an appointment. Maybe in 2 weeks time, check Friday if I'm around. And please remind him that he has only 15 minutes. When you come, he will deliberately not see you. He will wait in the secret room. He's not doing anything. He wants you to wait for 20 minutes first, so that you will have the understanding that you are not equal. You are no longer colleagues. And so after 20 minutes, he will walk into the hall and he will be quiet. He will be looking at you. If you don't stand up and say, God's servant, when you say that, I say, come on, we are brothers, we are brothers. Now relax, relax. Meanwhile, he has already programmed you to feel inferior before you approach him. Pride. And so when God sees that, he will say, okay, you have reached your zenith, remain there. You see people fighting. Lord, miracles must happen. Lord, church must grow. It is for packaging. They have no passion for anybody. They have no compassion for the floor. But those things is what validates them. Those things validate them. They can go out of their way so that certain things happen, not because they are concerned about people's progress. Those are the things that make them feel they have arrived. They have arrived. In fact, now they don't even joke with you anymore. 10 first somebody you pray with before, you crack jokes, you shake yourself. When you lift your hand to shake, your hands will hang on the air. He won't lift his own. When you lift your hand, he will say, it's important for us to understand seasons. Because if you don't understand seasons, you will not move forward. But it's parables. May God give us understanding. If God is helping somebody, honor him. It is foolishness not to honor the person God is lifting. But if honor has become something we so weaponize that we teach it until we use it as a witchcraft tool, then something is wrong with our soul. And when God sees that, God will insist that we never rise again. Because pride is what will rob this generation of the graces that we require to become a wonder to our generation. And number 5, I said you must have love for the souls, love for the sheep, compassion for the sheep. If you don't love the people, you have no ministry. If you don't love the people, because God's agenda is with men. And so you cannot claim you are part of God's agenda when you don't have affection, love, and passion for the people. I read scriptures for you yesterday from Matthew 14:14, Matthew 9:37. The Bible said Jesus saw the multitude and he was moved with compassion. It was on the strength of compassion that he healed them. It was on the strength of compassion that he went from place to place to serve them. And Paul was speaking in 1 Thessalonians 2:8. He said, because we are affectionately desirous of you, we did not just teach you the gospel, we imparted you the substance of our soul. There was connection with the people of God. There was passion for the people of God. There was love for the people of God. But today, ministry is profession. No connectivity, no concern, no attention, no love, no compassion. So long as people are slaving for God's servant, it's okay. But if God's servant has to go out of his way to help people, then it doesn't work. I know God's servant was modest when he was sharing. Today, they will tell you, if you are doing youth ministry, the first thing they tell you is that there's no money there. May the Lord help you. May the Lord help you. Because nobody is interested where there's no money. It's always about self. It's always about me, I, and myself. No connection. You find God's servant smiling with somebody, check, he has money. Find God's servant laughing with somebody, check, there is something sacrificial that person is doing for him. You will hardly find people now who go out of their way to help people who will never pay back. But the way Jesus demonstrated it was to give his life for people who will never be able to pay back. He didn't do it for those who will pay back in cash or in kind. He did it for people who will never be able to pay back. Because for him, whatsoever you do, do as unto the Lord. There must be compassion and vital connectivity. These are moral standards in the realm of God. And these are the things God sees and makes God point at a man and say, this is my man. This one is genuine. I have seen his heart. He doesn't love money. He doesn't love himself. He doesn't love anything but me. And he's doing all he's doing as a sacrifice and an offering to glorify my name. That's what we looked at yesterday. What manner of men ought we to be? We must be people that meet and pass the moral standards of God. Having explained that, I said there is a second dimension. When you say you are a man of God, when you say you are God's representative to a generation, then there is another thing. Matthew 8:37. It said Jesus stood up and rebuked the wind, and the disciples looked at him and they said, what manner of man is this, that even the wind and the waves obey him? And so the second thing that must be traceable to your life is signs and wonders. If there is no signs and wonders in your life, nobody will bother to even notice you exist before they ask the question, what manner of man are you? If there's no sign and wonder in your life, you are like everybody. There's no need to ask any question. You are a man of man. But when they see something in your life that they cannot explain, then they begin to ask a question. Who are you? And sometimes, even who are you becomes a wrong English. The right question they begin to ask is, what are you? Because when the psalmist spoke about man, they say, what is man? If they have not started asking, what are you? It means you are normal. But the kind of men Jesus left on earth are men that should not be asked, who are you? But what are you? What are you, sister? If everybody is asking, who are you? Where are you from? It means you are normal. When you become a servant of God, when you become a man who represents God, the same way they cannot define your God, they will not be able to define you. And so the question will change. What are you? When you leave this conference, they will start asking, what are you? along these lines, people look at you and they think you are exciting people. But the reason they think like that is because Christianity has been watered down. You know what they taught us Christianity is now? When you accept Jesus Christ, join the church and start growing in leadership. You become head of department, or you become a pastor, you learn the doctrine, you learn the religious rituals, and then you too, you gather people and you begin to carry them through that routine. That's not what Jesus left in the world. Not even the church in the wilderness operated like that. The church in the wilderness. If you read the Bible is filled with testimonies of men that worked wonders as a normal way of life. And when Jesus came, he upgraded the equation. And so we are not even permitted to function like the men in the wilderness. Do you even know what Jesus said? Jesus said in Matthew 14:12, he said, they that believe in me, he said, the works that I do, they shall do also. And he said, greater works than this. So Jesus was not even expecting us to do the things he did alone. He was expecting us to do much more. But when you read the Bible and you see what the men in the wilderness did, you will discover your own Christianity is a joke. Moses entered Egypt. Egypt is the strongest civilization of that world. He walked into Egypt with a staff. And you know what Moses was demanding for? The deliverance of more than 5 million people with a staff. He didn't come with an economic structure. He didn't come with an army. He didn't come with anything that suggested he was a system. Everything he carried was in a staff. And with a staff, Moses went, confronted the king, and said, the God of the Hebrews sent me. Let my people go that they may serve me. And the man was wondering, this is the greatest civilization in the world. Anything we don't do, anything we don't believe, no other person does it. Where are you coming from? Who is your God? Moses understood the question. Who is your God does not mean describe him. Show me the might of your God. The moment they say, who is your God? They dropped the staff. And the staff became a serpent. So the way you answer who your God is not with language. It's with signs and wonders. And 10 times Moses visited the king. And 10 wonder happened in Egypt. At the end of the day, Moses walked to a king that was called a god. Pharaoh was called the sun god. And Moses told him, you will not see me again. Is it a privilege for him to see you before? You will not see me again. And Moses walked out. That same night, Pharaoh sent for him and said, please, pack everything you want and go. We have no right to keep you. And Moses walked out. You think the battle was over? He confronted the sea. There was no technology of crossing a river. How do you walk towards the sea? What are you thinking? Moses knew that the rod was the answer. And when they turned to God, God said, why are you crying to me? Go forward. And Moses pointed a stick to a river, and the river parted. A wind passed through the river, and one side was ice blocked, another side was ice blocked, and over 5 million people walked through the river to the other side. The Egyptians thought it was a function of geography and season. When they entered, the water closed. So it was Moses that kept the water apart by power. They had never seen that. And you think that is all. When it was night, and you are thinking, where do we get fire from? Suddenly the Shekinah appeared. A fire from heaven appeared and stayed there as a covering. When it was there, you said, where do we go from here? It became a whirlwind moving in front of them. And you'll find a people coming to your country. Imagine over 5 million people are marching to your country, and what is leading them is not a man, it's a whirlwind. A tornado is coming into your nation, and behind that tornado you see 5 million people following. You will ask yourself, what are these people? When it is night, the tornado will turn to fire, and fire is moving on its own, and men are following. And that is not the only thing. What is the technology of feeding 5 million people? When they need food, suddenly it starts raining, and the rain is not water, it's food. And they go to the field, pack food and eat. When they want to eat meat, suddenly a wind direct birds, and birds fly to the camp. Birds will land, other birds will stand on top, other birds will stand on top. You go and carry, kill and eat. The next day the birds will still come again. And birds were coming every day for 40 years. Where did the birds come from? For 40 years birds were coming. And you think that is enough. You give birth to a child, and then you do a sander for that child, because wood was scarce. The child is growing, the sander also is growing. The garment you gave your child is growing, the garment is also growing. And then you say, what are these? are and what we are. You think Christianity is a set of rules and regulations. You don't know where we came from. Now when you study Moses, you think, oh, God was doing what he was doing because the people were many. And then lo and behold, a man showed up. And he was such in a hurry to manifest that they didn't have enough time to introduce where he came from or how he was born. He said, and Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, went straight to the king the same way Moses went. In the case of Moses, you say God answered like that because he was talking on behalf of 5 million people. Elijah was not talking on behalf of 5 million people. He said, as long as the Lord God whom I serve liveth, there shall be no rain or dew except by my word. Who are you to say there will be no rain? Have you forgotten that there is such a thing called conventional rainfall? That is a function of geography. So long as the sun shines, there must be rain. Because when the sun shines, water is evaporated. And when the cloud be full of rain, the cloud has no choice but to empty themselves. Then a man shows up and tells a king, he wasn't talking at the backyard. He meets a king and said, so long as I am standing, there will be no rain except I say so. The king would assume this one is a madman, and he walks away. And the king thought it was a joke. 1 month, no rain. 2 months, no rain. 3 months, no rain. 4 months. The king now came and said, is it possible that what this man says is what is happening? Dry season has finished. So 5 months, no rain. 6 months, no rain. 1 year, no rain. The king gathered the whole army and they started looking for one man. And then you thought the man was hiding, was running around. When Obadiah finally saw him, he said, okay, go and tell the king I'm here. That was when Obadiah told us why they couldn't find him. He said, if I leave you, the wind will carry you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hear this. In the days of Elijah, men bought horses to travel, but when Elijah wants to travel, a cloud will come. He will sit on it and he will be moving around like the whirlwind, like the whirlwind, like the whirlwind. That was how the man was living for 3.5 years. And when he wants to rest, he goes to a brook and sit down. There's no food in the land, but a raven was bringing bread every day for at least 2 years to feed him, morning and evening. You say Christianity is religion? You have not traced our origin where. It's a move of wonders. It's a move of signs. It's a move of power. That's why Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It is the power of God unto salvation. We are a people of wonder. That's what our ancestors did. You think that is enough? And then there was a man called Joshua who appeared on the scene. Israel were going to fight, and Joshua discovered in the morning under the sun they were winning, and he now saw that when the sun goes down they lose. And he now came and stood and began to talk to the sun. He said, let the sun not move, let the moon not move. Who talks to sun? Who talks to moon? Joshua talks to sun. Let the sun stand upon the mountains of Ajalon, and let the moon remain upon the valley of Gibeon. And he said the sun, they don't make haste to go down. So the sun who knows how to make haste, a man stopped it. We were born and initiated into a move of power. Christianity is not religion. It's divinity manifested through humanity. That's why you are not intoxicated. Things are going wrong, you are begging, you are sleeping. If you know what we are, if the devil shows up, anger rises in your spirit. How dare you come here? Somebody is about to step into a realm that has never been seen. When you are there, 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 when you are there. You know why I'm sharing this? Because God works in patterns, in cycles, and in seasons. Patterns because anything God has done before, there is now a precedence. He can do it again. In cycles because what was is what is and is what will come. And in seasons because different graces are allocated for different seasons. So if you understand precedence, anything God has done before, you can boast that it will happen again, and it will happen. If you understand season, you can decide what God is doing now, and you can insist on entering. Did you not read about Elijah? Elijah heard that Enoch walked with God and was not. And Elijah said, if God has done it before, he can do it again. When Elijah's time on earth was over, Elijah, like Enoch, also said, God will take me. And Elisha said, we have heard that God will take you. I will not leave you today. Elijah was so sure that he wanted to dribble Elisha, and Elisha said, I know you are going today, I will not leave you. How can you believe such a thing will happen with a man? And how can a man be mad enough to believe it? Elijah did not just know it will happen, he knew the location. And you know what Elijah did? He came to the Jordan and said, God did not part the river because Moses was with 5 million men. God parted the river because a man dared to believe. He took his mantle, struck the water. The same way God parted the river for 5 million people, he parted it for 2 people. And Elijah and Elisha walked through. When Elijah crossed the Jordan, he knew that the time has come. And he told Elisha, what do you want? My time is at hand. Your time to go where? So why you are bragging about standing in Heathrow Airport in London? Somebody else knows the airport to heaven. Go where? He said, ask what you want. And Elisha said, I want a double portion of your anointing. He said, you have asked a hard thing. Notwithstanding, if you see me when I'm taking, who will take you? How will they take you? What are you talking about? What are you? And while they were yet talking, the Bible said suddenly there was a chariot of fire from heaven, and it splitted them into 2. And he said a whirlwind carried him. Elisha knew, and he was watching, and he shouted, my father, the chariot of Israel and his husband thereof. And he said the mantle fell, and he caught it. Maragada, Zaza, Maruka. Hear this. Everything God has done before, he is still doing. It's what you can catch that is your own. Elisha caught it. Hey, and what God did for 5 million people, God did for 2 persons. Now God is about to do for 1 man. And Elisha turned back and said, the Lord God of Elijah, he struck the water parted, and he crossed. The moment he crossed, every other prophet knew that this one has become another man. When you are there, you are there. When you are there, 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 when you are there. Hear this. Do you know why I took time to carry you through this route? Because all of these things were at the foundation before Jesus came. And so what Jesus came to do was to raise the bar. And so why Moses had to part the Red Sea, Elijah had to part the Red Sea, Elisha had to part the Red Sea. When Jesus came on board, there was no need to part the water. The Bible said he walked on it. Araka, Barado, Baragada, Azeze, Zaza, Arikamada, Gabaduadada, Azo, Yakoa. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Now hear this. If I don't show you the background and I start talking about what you are, somebody will hear it and say, all these preachers, they are just psyching people. They don't know what Christianity is. They think Christianity is about human intelligence, that you are analyzing things, you are logical, and it's reasonable. Christianity is not reasonable. It's a supernatural life. It's above the human mental power. You can't reason it. It's beyond the mind. That's why we are not reasonable to be Christian. We have faith to be Christians. It's beyond the realms of reason. It's a supernatural life. Jesus walked on water. He walked on water. When Elijah wanted to raise the dead, he fell on the dead person. When Jesus came, they had buried the person. For 4 days, he was already decaying. He was already smelling. And Jesus came. He didn't need a ritual of lying on the person. He stood at the door in majesty and he said, Lazarus, come forth. The question you ask is, do the dead hear? Somebody is dead. The organ for hearing is dead. Why are you talking to the dead? Because the words I speak is not Hebrew, it's not Aramaic. The words I speak, they are spirit and they are life. Even if you are dead, I inject life into you. When I speak, I release life. Barakoa Ezeke Rakuna Tash. Karuna Paraga Absasode Paragadia Yarobo Kapataka Alaka Babatu Babashka Arakwa Piado Tatatina Raka. There is power here. Aro Baraka Babatakas Abereriano Dalakatia Manteke Para Abaraka Tatatina Talakato Ambere Kaparusa Patakaza Zona Arakwa Can I tell you what will quench your hunger? It's not a new doctrine. Doctrine is good, but what your spirit is looking for is not a message. What your spirit is looking for is supernatural dimensions. What your spirit is looking for is power. What your spirit is looking for is an experience with God. You are not moved by stories. You have heard too many stories. Your spirit is asking a question: when will I handle this? It said the things that we heard, the things we saw, the things we looked upon, it said now our hands have handled. Help us under the anointing. There is a power coming to this place now. There is an unction descending here. I did not come with excellency of speech when I declared unto you the counsel of God. I came with a demonstration of the spirit and power, that your faith will not be built on the wisdom of man, but on the power of God. Aroba Baraka Azazina Talagato Apeana Swa Yago Sagash. Come on, pray in the Holy Ghost. Something is entering here now. Abaro Ravak Heyana Ilo Barida Kabasha Bande Leboya Avonto. He said, everyone that tests, let him come. Let him come. Let him come. There is a river of living waters. Everyone that tests, there is a quench for you. Arelo Barika Avelo Lalina Azayana Nigat. My God. Oravele Kula Zakadila Parakado Alika Poratiana Lavagadia. God is quenching the test of man. I release that power. I release that unction. I release that grace. I release that possibility by the Spirit.